We're bringing you sleek and chic on today's special episode of Homeworthy with 5 of our favorite contemporary spaces. This home in Brooklyn was once office space but is now a beautiful apartment. And this loft in Manhattan has its own private car elevator, allowing homeowner Jamie Drake to park right next to his apartment. These tastemakers highlight how unique, expressive, and inviting spaces can be achieved with luxurious, modernist design. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
This piece here I had from another office, and I brought it here. It's a French butcher's table from Paris, and I actually have, you'll see around the loft, some French children's chairs from school chairs, which I love. So this is a table, a 60s table, I believe, that Fran Lebowitz gave to me that I love. It's an original piece. And over here, we have a picture of Andy and Drina De Niro, Robert De Niro's daughter, who I met that day, and I'm still friends with Drina all these years later. This was done, obviously, in the mid-'80s, I guess, 84 or something like that. We were photographing her mother, Diane Abbott, who was so beautiful and wonderful. This is a drawing that was done by this artist, Fran Heaney, who I'm with there when we were kids traveling across North Africa. This was in Marrakesh from a photograph someone took of us, and she did that drawing, which I love so much. This is kind of some of Andy's stuff. Every year, or a couple of times a year, Andy gifted me and other people at the factory stuff. And I guess it was cheaper for him to actually just give us a painting or a print than going out and buying something for us. So he gave me that Mao, which is so beautiful, and there's a $ painting that's there that he gave me, I think, for my birthday or something. That's a David LaChapelle picture that he gave me a long, long time ago that I love. I love my stuff so much. I love all the, when people would come over, as I said before, there was a wall of thousands and thousands of photographs. And I had, someone once gave me a pair of little opera glasses so that when people came over, they could see themselves. Often people would say, well, where am I? I don't see myself on your wall. And I'd have to make sure I knew where everyone was so I could give them the opera glasses and so they could see themselves on the wall. The windows here were originally, when I came in, they were blocked off. You didn't see the arch. The people here before me had covered them over. So that's one of the first thing I did was to have the glass glazed to that arch and to take the, whatever the hell they put up there to keep it covered. And then I had the drapes were done by Fran Lebowitz's father, who had a drapery business. And I remember when Brooke Shields was one of the first people to come here to see my house when I first got it done. And Brooke came in and she said, did those drapes? And I said, oh, it's Fran's father did those drapes. And she said, oh my God, he must have been so tall. So that was little Brooke, who I adore. I've gotten a few amazing gifts from the actor Paul Rubens, better known as Pee Wee Herman. And this is one of them. It's a lava lamp that I adore. He's given me a few more that I don't have on at the time. These 2 bowls I got in northern Sicily, and I bought this one and had it shipped here, and when it came here, it was in 100 pieces. And I was so upset, I took a Polaroid of it, that's how long ago it was, I took a Polaroid of it and sent it to the store and called them saying, I'm sending you a Polaroid, you broke my beautiful bowl. And so they sent me another one, beautifully wrapped. But the housekeeper, my housekeeper at the time, unbeknownst to me, took it home and glued it all together. So I now have 2 of them, which I love, these little duck bowls. Well, I'm kind of writing about it now. I'm writing a bunch of stories about my life in the fashion world in the 80s, the incredible drugs and insanity that went on with fashion shoots. At the same time that I was art director of Interview magazine, Andy was pretty cheap. And so I had to go out and get a job, a secondary job. And I became the art director of something called Vogue Patterns magazine. And I would do Vogue Patterns during the day and then interview at lunchtime and at night. And it was, Andy's the one who suggested this. I quit interview after I got the job at Vogue Patterns. Andy was with the Shah of Iran and called me from Iran the night I quit and said, no, you have to stay. We'll work around you. You'll continue to be the art director. Just don't tell your new employers that you're keeping your old job. And that's what I did for 3 years until I left Vogue Patterns and started my own business, my own ad agency. But it was a very, very crazy world. I mean, everything was new at that time. The idea of being a supermodel was kind of brand new. I didn't know what to make of it suddenly, but it was just an incredible time. It was all about Studio 54, going out all night and then working all day. At one point, I used to ride my bike up to Studio 54 and then leave my bike in the office, and then dance, and then get my bike and bring it back down, and then bike home at night. Oh, not at night. It was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, there's a few things that I remember about Andy and me. Once when we were photographing a bunch of male models, we were in a hotel room, and Andy never came to any photo shoot that I can remember. So I think he did Diana Ross once. He came to a Diana Ross shoot. But I came into the hotel room late, and I walk in, and there were all these male models laying around, and Andy is laying in the bed with them. And I looked at him and I like, what are you doing here? And he looked at me, and just to be mean, I started to work out at that point and I was getting bigger. And Andy looked up at me and said, oh, Mark, he said, you used to be so good looking. He said, now you look like you're wearing a coat all the time. So of course I was the butt of the joke. Everyone burst out laughing, and Andy made sure that the center was on him. And then I just went into the other room. You can't get angry with your boss like that. First of all, this table, I wanted a dining room table and also a table to work on. And so I sketched out this table idea. And then these wonderful same Irish guys went up to the Bronx, got the wood, and then up on the roof, we carved it out and put it together and made this wonderful table. So I designed it for this space. There are some of the chairs from the French school. This whole wall is corkboard, and it was originally filled to the brim with photographs, Xeroxes, Polaroids, lots of stuff from various friends over a period of 50 years, 40 years. And I'll show you that. I had to take it down because I'm selling this place, and the real estate people didn't want to have too much of my personality in here. So they wanted that down, and I took it down. But we'll look at some of the photographs. I guess I put my first picture on the wall, I guess probably in the early 90s. And then I started to put more pictures on the wall, and then I said, well, maybe I should take the whole wall, make the whole wall a corkboard, and then I don't have to put it into the actual wall, which I did. And it was a wonderful piece, and everyone loved it, and everyone looked for themselves on it. It was really great. Wherever I move next, I'm going to do another wall. So you'll have to come there. So this is this is a cover of Interview that I did with Albert Watson, the photographer Albert Watson. Aretha had agoraphobia. She wouldn't come out of her house, so we had to go to Detroit to photograph her. And I had the most amazing time with her because I brought a pink Cadillac with me, a little sculpture of a pink Cadillac. And that song came out at the time. And we turned on the music in her living room, and she burst out of the kitchen. She was in there eating fried chicken and soda and stuff, and I was laying on the living room floor, and I jumped up and she came through, and the two of us started dancing to her music. I wish I had a photograph of it, but I don't. She was amazing. I loved her, and I loved being there. This is Paul Rubens from the 80s sometime. Andy wanted to do a hip issue, And there was no one more hip than Paul Rubens at the time. So we went out to LA and photographed him in Los Angeles. And this is when I was talking about before about dreaming. I had a dream about a woman walking down a staircase. And so we were doing this actress at the time, and so we just connected this. I had this jeweler do this amazing earring, and then there she is walking down the staircase. And that's what was so amazing about interview in those days, is I could dream something, get up, and then find out who we had to photograph, and then have her, it was photographed by Bob Kiss, and the jewelry was Robert Lee Morris, who I called and I said, I have this idea of a woman walking down a staircase, could you make me an earring? And he did.
I'm Jamie Drake, co-principal of Drake Anderson Interior Designers based here in New York City, and I'm welcoming you to my home here in New York City in Chelsea. Growing up, I always wanted to be a designer from a very young age. I resided in Woodbridge, Connecticut, a small town outside of New Haven, and as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, I had a backyard fort with my best friend, and he was in charge of sort of the heavy lifting, moving the big rocks around this pit that we had, which was our fort, our clubhouse, and I was in charge of antiques and decorating. That included me going into an abandoned barn, up the hill and down and through the woods, and finding rusted out wash basins, dusty old glass bottles, and those were the accessories that I had to work with. My apartment, you enter in directly off the elevator, which is the way my last apartment was too. Many people find that strange and surprising, but to me, that's the normal. So the entry here sets the stage, and straight ahead of you is a beautiful piece by Chuck Close, a wonderful artist whose use of color, I think, is something that resonates with me greatly. You know, one of the things that attracted me to this apartment when I bought it was very different than my last apartment. Here I was going to have a great room with an open kitchen. I've never in my entire life had an open kitchen before, but I live in a modern world. I never had a TV in my living room before, but now I live in a modern world. And so I was attracted to this giant, big, square great room. And there was no building for me to look at. So I was taking a leap of faith, and luckily as a designer, I could envision space from a plan. And this really did turn out to be the drama that I wanted. Big 32-foot square room, 16-foot ceilings, and everything is open. So often in our work we have challenges, and one of the challenges in this room was there was a structural column centered or off-centered in the room. And I struggled with it for a while in my mind, and I thought, what do we do here? And people said, oh, mirror it, make it disappear. And it's like, this thing isn't disappearing no matter what. It was 36 inches square. And I decided to make it actually larger and more important, and I encased it on all four sides with millwork of quite complexity. That gave me a way to divide the room in two and create two different zones. Here on this side is the TV. Living with a TV exposed for the first time in my life. There's storage underneath it. And then on the opposite sides, there are storage cabinets with beautiful woven steel and brass mesh inserts in the doors. And then on the opposite side, there are floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. You know, I really love having a TV in the living room because it turns out occasionally you do want to sit with people and watch TV. And so it worked in well here. The complexity of materials, I think, helps. So what I did here was there's ebonized, cerused white oak. There's gray lacquer. There is the woven metal and brass inserts on the doors. And then there are patinated steel corners that with exposed screws. So it's kind of brutalist in a way, but in an elegant way. And the TV fits in perfectly as another material in the same palette. So this is my idea of a media room. So this side is actually the sort of the more casual. I know to most people this doesn't look too casual, but I have this giant sofa that is one of the few pieces I brought over from my old apartment. And it's huge and it's wonderful. And for big groups, again, talking about entertaining, easily 6 8, 9 people can join each other on this couch lined up in conspiratorial whispering. I bought this wonderful Harvey Prober swivel chair in Palm Springs, and I just love its big egg-shaped form. The cocktail table I designed, and we've done variations on it for clients over the years. This was the first time I did it, and it's absolute black marble and pure white marble joined together in this kind of runway pattern, whether it's a runway for an airplane to take off or a runway for a fashion show. See it as you wish. I did start to buy art because I love art when I signed the contract on the apartment, and one of the first things I bought was this beautiful sculpture by an Italian artist, and it's marble tires, and it's carved out of one piece of marble, but it's interlocking. And I started to collect things that I felt were rather indicative of the history of this block and this neighborhood in New York, which was taxi cab and car repair shops. I love a big coffee table, and especially in front of this big sofa. In its former incarnation, I actually had 2 cocktail tables, but now I went with one big one. And it's a wonderful place to create a tablescape and things that give you a sense of delight and a sense of interest. A stack of books. Gracie Mansion, there's a book about a project that I worked on in 2002. A wonderful Salvador Dali brass clock face, melted clock face that I bought in the Paris flea market a million years ago. A dark, it looks like a black glass candlestick. It's actually the deepest, darkest blue, which you can only pick up in brilliant light, which I bought from an antique shop on Bleecker Street when Bleecker Street was filled with antique shops, long gone sadly. And this beautiful gilded chain is actually a necklace. And I wore it once, although I didn't wear it around my neck. I wore it on my hip at a fabulous party that Bronson Van Wyck gave in Mykonos, the Gods and Goddesses party, a great party. This cashpo is actually from a line I designed for a wonderful company called La Brazil, and it's a wastebasket. And there are matching tissue boxes and canisters that go with it, but I decided to repurpose it as a cashpo. And it's beautiful gilded ceramic made in Italy with this wonderful rough texture. It's called Valerie. So I did buy some new art for this apartment, and this giant wall above this giant sofa needed something very commanding. And I bought this beautiful photographic piece by the German artist Thomas Ruff, and it's so evocative to me, and it's playful, and it's mysterious, and again, thought-provoking. What is it? And actually, it's a mutated face, digitally mutated, but you can't see the face. Don't spend too much time staring at it. And again, it's the way that the colors layered together change. The same thing like the Bridget Riley I have, the Chuck Close, so many artists that I admire and have passion for. It's about the interaction of color, which I think speaks to me personally about my own work. I describe my design style, as we do at Drake Anderson, as bold, confident, witty, exquisite, sexy. Those are some of the essays actually in our new book that's coming out in September 20th of this year, 2022, published by Rizzoli, and it's called Bold, The Interiors of Drake Anderson. Every time I say the title, I put the emphasis on bold, which is how it's in the typeface on the cover. And we're really excited about that. But it's urbane, the work we do. It has a sense of luxury, even if the textiles sometimes are more elemental. And we like a sense of wit and humor too. Not looking for belly laughs, but things that put a smile on your face and maybe make you think a little. Hard to know how my love for color came about, but probably because my mother was an artist. She was a painter. Gave it up early to raise 3 children, but she was a painter who studied at the Yale Art School, and my father was in the printing business. And I think going to that, the printing plant that he owned, and seeing these tubs of viscous ink and shiny, incredible intensity of color and depth because wet ink is like that, definitely infected my mind. When thinking about this apartment and what was offered, the kitchen was really a key factor to me. And so here we are in the kitchen that I have now. The kitchen that was part of the package was far from bad. It was designed by Annabelle Seldorf. How bad could it be? But there was a couple of major things for me. One was I really absolutely was insistent upon having Sub-Zero and Wolf appliances because I absolutely feel they are the finest in the industry. Secondarily, I thought the kitchen just felt a little tentative for my style. And it was this kind of warm, was it cherry wood or something? It just wasn't a color I responded to. It was very clever, but it wasn't for me. So I negotiated to buy without a kitchen. And for the closing, there was a little tiny, like a Susie Homemaker kitchen installed, because you have to get that for the C of O. But as I started to think about what I wanted a kitchen that, knowing it would be open, that looked really more like a wet bar. Didn't anticipate cooking myself, which I didn't for a very long time. But I wanted something that also served for entertaining well. So I do have the 4 counter stools at the end where I can sit down and have a meal by myself or with a few friends. But that, when I take the stools away, is a perfect setup for a bar. And that's where the bar gets set up. When I'm having a dinner, this is where the buffet gets set out. And it's enough space to set out an entire buffet, as I said, for, I've had, I think, as many as almost 100 people for dinner. I sketched this design freehand, and then we scanned it and put it in CAD and sent it off, and that's how it was done. There's a huge steel understructure. Corian, of course, is a perfect material to hide seams. This didn't come in one piece, but you can not find a seam. I defy you to find a seam. There is power worked into it for underneath, long before I knew I needed a home office at the other end. And again, it's a fabulous display piece. It's a wonderful statement. And then it rests atop a gilt box. And the gilt box has tons of storage in it. I think, like all designers, a surface is a place to be creative. And so once again, here I have stacks of books. I have a sculpture by the artist Rinaldo Sanguino. And what's so fun is when you buy something and they come together with other things you already own. So this very cute little animal I bought on a trip to Israel, a place I just went with great friends and really enjoyed. And this also came from Israel, a different place completely. And so you have this very high-end piece of art, and then this, which is truly kind of just a souvenir, and this, which is absolutely a beautiful work of art by a young ceramicist. And here we are in the elevator. I mean, in the garage, not the elevator yet. So to access the elevator, it will come up from the ground floor. It's very interesting, it works very well, I have to say. And I absolutely did not buy this apartment because of this garage elevator feature, as sexy and unique as it is in New York City. But it certainly has proved to be a wonderful, wonderful convenience, especially on a pouring rain day or a heavy snowstorm where you actually don't even have to walk half a block away. So the elevator comes up and I would drive forward, get in, it would go down, and I would exit on the other direction. So my apartment was first published in Architectural Digest, and Margaret Russell was the editor-in-chief at the time and was very enthusiastic about that, except she said I had to do one thing before she would shoot it, which was to finish decorating and designing the garage. And so she gave me the reason that I went on to put this wonderful wallpaper, this mylar back, very striate wallpaper called Skyscraper from Dongia, a slat ceiling like a revisitation from the 70s that used to be in all sorts of malls and offices, a wonderful chandelier from Ralph Pucci, and then this cool purple awning over the door.
Welcome to my kitchen. This is one of my favorite rooms in the home and the most unique rooms of the house, primarily because of this massive window here. I had never seen a window so big, like in the kitchen. And when I first purchased the home, this window had this old curtain over it, and it was so dark. And literally the first thing I did was like rip the curtain down, and I was able to see how much light just filled this massive kitchen. Also, while living in the house, I never decided to cover the window because it's always something to look out of. My neighbors are pretty far away across the street, so you can never really see anything in the home. But my inspiration behind the kitchen was similar to the exterior of the home, is to create a kitchen that didn't really feel like a kitchen, but felt more like a beautiful room that you could enjoy food in. And so as you can see, I took down all of the upper cabinets. There's no upper cabinets in the home. And I opted for a butcher block countertop that I could stain black. And I just had this vision of all lower cabinets so that when you came into the room, you knew it was a kitchen, but you weren't overtaken by the fact that it was a kitchen. It was more of just a beautifully designed space that aesthetically was seamless with the rest of the home. I opted for a black induction countertop, black induction stove, and of course my industrial sink, and then I kept the original Sub-Zero refrigerator. It was working, and I thought it was such a cute little quirky thing to keep. Whenever it goes out, I'll have to replace it with the Sub-Zero, but for now, I love that it's old, I love that it's vintage, and it just reminds me of the history of the home. Also, when I first purchased the home, this light area here where the dining table, the kitchen table was sitting used to be sort of in the middle of this space here. And I love the notion of just massive spaces. And so I had the light moved from just right next to the kitchen to the other side of the kitchen. And it just creates this massive space to just walk through. And being that once you live in the home and you come in and out of the house from the garage, I wanted a beautiful foyer for myself to enjoy on a daily basis. And so because of that, I created a new foyer, if you would, in between my kitchen and my dining space that made me feel elegant and made me feel like I could relax, and it just wasn't a bunch of stuff right in the door. And that was the creation of this like nothingness here, which I love. So this art here really speaks to my personal style. I'm like a smash up of classic contemporary components, modern components, urban components. The Rare Essence Wu-Tang flyer was an original flyer that is, Rare Essence is a DC-based like go-go band that's like, people rave about Rare Essence. I am not from Washington, D.C., but I've been here for 14 years, and I know that go-go is serious business here in Washington, and people that know D.C. know go-go. And one of my clients actually, one partner did not love the art, and one partner was obsessed with the art. And so technically, that Rare Essence flyer, which is a collector's item, is on, I'm holding it for my clients, and it's been in here for 8 years. I've had it for 8 years. So it's technically not mine, but I'm holding it for my friends / clients. And this Mona Lisa piece of art here, I had to hustle, which was a part of the Virgil Abloh collection with IKEA he did maybe 2 years before his passing. And so I remember when he did the collaboration with IKEA and did this Mona Lisa, and as you can see, it has one of those off-white Virgil Abloh design components, which is the light box behind it and then the orange cord that kind of hangs from the bottom. I stood in line from 6 o'clock in the morning, and I tried to buy every single piece from that collection. I got most of the pieces. But when I got into the store, this piece was sold out. And randomly, I got to my car, and this guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, did you want that Mona Lisa painting?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he racked the price up like 10 times, and I still bought it. And I'm very proud of this piece. It's one of my favorite pieces. And it's classic, but it's cool. And I love it, and I love putting them together. I also collect Vogue magazines. I'm very, very into fashion. Of course, I own a fashion label. And I think print media is so niche and so cool that I want to invest in it. So I have subscriptions with Vogue, subscriptions with Arc Digest. Do I read them? No. But I just collect them and I stack them everywhere. I have stacks through my home, stacks through my offices. And here's like a little stack of some vintage Vogue covers. I also had these beautiful pieces of china. I can't think of the correct term, but the blue and white china that I'm obsessed with. And I just like to smash the components together, and I just think it just gives you a beautiful feast to the eyes.
So this is the living room. This is a space that has the most light. Sometimes it's blinding. Sometimes it's actually incredibly beautiful at sunset time. It's the space that has the best views of all of the rooms in the house. It's also the space that's filled with a lot of objects that have personal meaning to me. Many of them have been made by my husband, Miguel Angelo. He's got a wacky sense of materiality. So I'll show you some of the pieces. He made this table here. It's made out of something like 27,000 matches. He meticulously hand glued each match to this table structure, which is a maddening experience, I would imagine. He created these two chairs that are on either side of this credenza. They are garden chairs, but he wrapped them with baker's string, and you know, they're almost like these hairy rugs of chairs, and they're really cool. And I love this table. It's something that Jane turned me on to that we found in Paris together at a shop called Prince Jardinet. And it's made out of tools. I mean, the four legs are literal shovels and spades, and it's actually one of my favorite things in this house. This group over here is something that I made years ago. I had a pop-up store in New York City. It was called Wood Shop, and it was things that were either made out of wood or they were inspired by the woodworker's atelier. This, I think, is probably one of the best items that came from that. It was inspired by the classic chocolate Valentine's box. When you open it up, there's different samples of different wood types. So instead of chocolates, it's all different kinds of wood. And you could see on here oak, black palm, poplar, purple heart, cherry. This was the most popular item in the store. We couldn't keep it on the shelves. This is the only one left. So this pencil was made by Miguel as well. This was a birthday gift. He surprises me a lot with birthday gifts that he's made. They get bigger and bigger all the time, and the house gets smaller and smaller, but this is one that lives here. And I love this piece a lot. He found some wooden something on the street, and then he covered it with thousands and thousands of thumbtacks. So these bookshelves are something that they're actually a little tricky. They open up. And behind these bookshelves is where we have a television and where the computer printer is and the stuff that we don't want to look at. It's a little bit of a production. I had thought that it would be an easier experience. It's something that we've really labored over, but it was really important to me to not walk into this room and look at a television. And generally, I never turn a television on, and I don't want to look at it as a piece of artwork on the wall. And so the folks from Made were really wonderful to humor me by finding a way to hide it behind this bookshelf. This opens up. It slides to the left and to the right. I do have to take the mirrors down. I do have to take the chairs away. I mean, it's a process. But, and truth be told, it lives open much more than it lives closed. Because somebody in this house wants to watch television all the time. But the truth is it does close up, and so if we are having a party or I don't want to look at it, I can close it all up and it looks clean and neat. So this is a labor of love. This is the book that Jane Shulak and I created. And we've worked on it for about 5 years. It just came out. It's a tabletop book, but it's not really a tabletop book. It's an exploration of the value of handmade elements in our lives. It's something that obviously I've talked a lot about today in how that relates to my personal life, but it's something that I think is really important in my professional life as well. I know that Jane shares the same ideals and the same love for a lot of the same kind of work. It's really how she and I became such fast friends anyway. But we've partnered with a bunch of different museums, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the V&A in London, the Museum of Decorative Arts in Paris, and we shot items from their collections And then we found whoever was the contemporary artisan, who was the contemporary expression of the work that we found in the museum. The easiest way, I think, to understand it is, I think about blue and white Delft. And a lot of people think that Ralph Lauren invented blue and white Delft, but we know that he didn't. And that it came from somewhere a long time ago, from a far off land, and it was a style that was co-opted and explored by others over the years. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. That means that it had some kind of lasting influence on people. But we wanted to really get to the root of where did these things come from. Like this is a favorite one that was created in Detroit that was in reaction to this Diego Rivera mural, where we created this candle structure out of plumbing pipe. And this would be kind of emblematic of some of the event work that I do, where I take a material that was probably meant for some other purpose and that also maybe not considered chic, and then I do something with it that makes it chic and that you look at it in a different way. So Miguel, God bless him, rescues plants from the street. So this agave is a rescue. It's grown about 3 times the size as it was then when he brought it home. And this guy is also very happy here. He was a rescue. This was not a rescue. This was a purchase. I live in fear of what he's going to bring home, but we make it work. I bought these heads in a shop in Santa Fe. I love the way they look, but I also love the story behind them. They were made by a gentleman from Oaxaca, Mexico, who's blind, and he feels the features. That's how he differentiates the forms and the shapes by feeling the features of his of the person he's making the portrait of. The clouds are made by an artist from Italy. I frankly don't remember the artist's name, but I do love them. We put them up lots of times and tried to figure out the exact perfect spot, and the thing about a cloud, it moves. So I've had to get used to the idea that I can't hold it in the exact position I always want it to be in, and that I have to be open to the idea that it's going to move around, which I suppose is a reflection of life. So I think the thing that's really interesting about our home here is that I think that people anticipate that my living space would be brash and loud and theatrical in the way that my events are. And I think that I actually live quite differently than that at home. It's actually quiet, it's contemplative. It's perhaps the exact opposite of what the events are. Now, I suppose I take pride in that I think our events are elevated and that there's a fine design hand and the craftsmanship is top, and we take all of that very seriously. But I think at the end of the day, my living space wants to be a calm respite from all of the craziness that the events are and the hecticness of what my world really is. And so in conceiving of this space, it was important to find a way to design it so that when I came home, there was that calm release that happens that's sort of a relief, right? And New York City, the energy of that, the energy of these events, the energy of all of the travel, that's a lot to contend with. So when I did come home, I wanted to feel calm when I walked in the door.
Now I'm going to show you the main space. It's kind of divided into 3 sections, and this area I call the lounge. This is where I start my day in the morning and I have my coffee. And there's some really cool art pieces that I love. Like this piece is by Naruki Kukita. He's a friend of mine, and he gave me this for my birthday, and now he's a really famous artist. It seems like I know a lot of people that became famous. You'd think I would be doing better. But, you know, this is one of my favorites. This is by luxe. He's known for photography of like men, and I got this at Clamp Art. I actually have a couple other luxe things I'll show you in the bedroom. I'm obsessed with him. His photography is always like so crisp and clear, and it definitely, you know, creates a mood. This one is Jack Pearson, which this interesting story, John Derry and I have been friends for like 20 years, and he had this in his office. I was there for a party, And I said, can I have that? And he said, I can't give it to you because it's a gift. So 20 years later, I was in P-Town and I saw this for sale in a gallery and I was like, I want that. I didn't even ask the price. I had no idea how much it cost. It was not cheap. But I got it. I finally got it and I had it framed and now I have a Jack Pearson. This I got at Housing Works, really cheap. Housing Works is like amazing. These two paintings were like a set for like $45 and I was like, this looks like real art. It is real art. And so it's like one of my favorites now. This couch is my favorite place in the apartment. This couch I've had for years and years. It's been upholstered 3 times now. This is a Romo fabric that I put on it. Everybody thought it was crazy, but it's turned out to be the best place to be. I mean, it's really sloppy, but it's like the most comfortable couch. I sleep here sometimes, you know, like naps. I don't sleep here, but it's my favorite place. It's where I start my day. Like I said, it's where people hang out. We have cocktails when there's just a couple of us sitting here just talking because it feels like a separate room from the rest of the room, even though everything else is all one room. These coffee tables were from Post Poden from Amsterdam. When I had a store, I bought a lot from this company. It's a really great resource for like really modern things. And I love this vibe of doing like different colors. This rug is Rug Company. Rug Company is like my favorite place to go for rugs. So I'm a little bit obsessed with them. We did a show house in the Hamptons like 2017 and we used this tiger rug, smaller version in the closet and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I said I have to buy this rug and I got one for myself, so I'm really happy about that. Now let's go to the dining room, which is actually just right here next to the sofa. And this is actually where I entertain, but it's also where I work. So I like to spread out fabrics and samples and stuff. So it's a big table. It seats 10 people. I have 10 chairs. I love these chairs too. They're covered in this Thibaut fabric. It's like ECAT. I never met an ECAT I didn't like. So you're gonna see a lot of ECAT in this house. So I work here, like I said, and on this table is more colored pencils. As I told you, you're gonna see a lot of colored pencils. Samples. We're working on a project in Chicago now. We're redoing a living room and building a bar. And so I have the whole color palette laid out here. Boxes, I kind of collect boxes, so there's stuff in all these boxes. Business cards and like note cards and notes and pads and stuff. I like to always have some kind of big flower arrangement because I feel this table's really big when it's empty and I think it looks better when there's something tall, vertical going up because this is so horizontal. So these are actually fake from Crate and Barrel, but I mixed in some real stuff so it looks more organic. I think it's important, like interiors, to have something organic in like every room. So you'll always see me like throwing dead sticks around and things like that, because I think it just adds something. Or like real flowers, you know, like orchids I love because they last for a long time. I think that I think this is a really good example of like how I live and like what inspires me. So I like to have all those things around me. A lot of the things that I have on this table are gifts from people. People give me things and I like to keep them out. I'm not the kind of person who like re-gifts or gives things away. I keep everything in a drawer if I don't like it. But you know, if I like it, you'll see it on display. This chandelier I got at a flea market, like, God, 15 years ago. And it was like totally just like the frame. It had to get rewired. There were no crystals. So I paid like $150 for the chandelier and I paid the guy $150 to rewire it. And then I got all these crystals. Actually, my sister helped me. She found these at Lowe's and shipped them to me. And they're all random, different things. Some of them are vintage, actually, because she goes to flea markets too. So these are vintage. They're like maybe 5 vintage ones, and most of these new ones are from Lowe's. And this is a little ornament from John Darien. Like I said, I'm a big fan of John Darien. It's one of my favorite things. Okay, now let's go to the living room. Now we're in the living room. This is my new favorite thing. It's my Porta Romana lamp. I love Porta Romana. Their stuff is beautiful. We did a show house in London last summer and we used all Porta Romana lamps and I was obsessed with them. I designed these bookcases for this apartment when I moved in. I decided to try to maximize the space, so I had the mill worker make these extra boxes and then put them up top. And I think when I was planning it, I hadn't lived here yet. I didn't know this pipe was here. So when they came with all the stuff, they didn't know how to like put it together. So they had to like slide them from the other room across to fit it all together. So I guess I'm never moving because I don't know how I would get it out. But this bookcase is definitely very me. It's my favorite color. It's called Old Blue Eyes from Benjamin Moore, and it holds pretty much everything that I own. Like lots and lots of design books. I love interior design, so I buy every book from all my friends, magazines, of course. Here's a picture of me. That's from when I was younger and I went to Spain. It was actually, I think that was my first trip abroad. I was young and skinny, really skinny, God. More books. I'm obsessed with Lee Radziwill, so I have a couple of Lee Radziwill books. This is like my favorite gift ever. Kevin got me this for my birthday last year, a bobblehead of me. And I opened it and I was like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever had a better gift. It was just hilarious. It's probably my favorite thing. I know I say that a lot. This is also one of my favorite things. This vase is Italian from the 60s. I got it at Michel Varian. We used it for a show house. It was really expensive, but I wasn't able to sell it, so it's living here now. And this bust I got at Monger's Market in Connecticut. I love thrift shops and flea markets, but Monger's Market is like a giant. It's like a giant flea market. There's so many cool things and vendors and stuff, so it's a great resource for me. Okay, coffee table 101, you can never have too much stuff. I don't like a coffee table that's really empty, so this is piled up books and flowers and plants. More dead sticks, like I said. Never met a dead stick I didn't like. This vase by Marc Balet is my favorite. Melanie is the founder of the Black Artists and Designers Guild, and she is a sculptor, and she made this vase, and she was willing to sell it to me, so I was super happy to get one. This I got in France. It's La Toula Loupe, like handmade pottery. I'm obsessed with it. There's just like a lot of stuff, but I think you need a lot of stuff. It kind of like, I think the coffee table is a place where you can really show people who you are, you know. People sit here waiting for you to make their drink and they can like look and see, you know, how your mind works. You don't have to talk to them. I think when I moved here, I knew that I wasn't going to move for a long time because I've moved 13 times since I've lived in New York. And even though this place is a rental, I thought I'm going to stay here for a long time. And I learned from past experience, you should just do what you want because it's not going to matter in the end. Like you think you're going to be someplace for a couple of years, you wind up being there for like 8 years now. I'm probably going to be here forever. You know, they're going to have to drag me out of here. So I just did everything I wanted. And, you know, I was told by the broker I could do whatever I wanted. So I did that. What I love most about my home is the location. I love this neighborhood. Noho is like heaven. It's like the perfect like link between the East Village and the West Village in Soho. I remember when I was younger, I used to live in the East Village, and one day I was walking to Soho and I walked down this street and I just stopped like right outside because I live right where Bleecker and Elizabeth meet, and I said this would be a great place to live. And like 20 years later, I'm living here. It's kind of interesting that I guess I manifested it.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.